We've talked about child abuse and child neglect on our channel before and heard stories from various different people about children in the Sea Organization. But we've got a little bit different story this time. This is Amber McBride's story. And she actually got involved with Scientology when her mother started just as a public Scientologist back when she was like 4 years old. And we're going to talk about the neglect and Amber's story about lack of education, lack of care by her mother, and Scientology and their involvement with it as well. I think you'll find it informative. Amber is somebody who's been watching our channel for a while. She bought one of Janice's books, and we reached out to her when she mentioned that she had been in the Cadet Org in Los Angeles. So we reached out, and so we're going to tell her story. This is the first part of it. Stay tuned. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher. I'm here with my co-host, Janice Gillum-Grady. Good day, Janice. How's it going today?
Good day, Mark. It's going good. It's a nice day. It's actually pretty warm outside comparatively. Yeah. So, yeah, it's exactly. A good day.
Yeah.
and you know, today we have a different guest than the type that we've usually had on, because this person, you know, lately we've been doing old timers, and this guest, though she's an old timer, she was young when she was in, and she actually, I first found her name when she ordered a book from us, but then she became a viewer, and from her view she made a comment about being in the Cadet Org in PAC, at which point I went, ding, 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 this is someone we want to talk to, because
absolutely.
Because the hell those kids went through, you know, and so I think this will be a very interesting conversation with our guest, Amber McBride.
Hi, Amber. How you doing?
Hi, guys.
Welcome to our channel. Amber also became Facebook friends with us as well, and she's been following our channel. So anyway, we're happy to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How about you guys?
We're good.
Oh, yeah, all good. So we want to start at the beginning. That's usually where we start. Like, how did your mother got in Scientology, right? When did that happen? Where? Why don't you go ahead and start telling the story?
It started pretty much in like around 79, 80. Mm-hmm. My aunt was getting married in Austin, Texas, and she was a Scientologist first, and I guess my parents weren't getting along. I don't really know what was going on with them, but we went to her wedding, and my mom met this guy out there when she went at the wedding, and then I don't know, they must have talked her into being like, hey, this is a better life for you, and Amber, come out here. And she was just gonna leave my dad and go out there and just stay there, but my grandparents talked her.
How old were you?
How old was I?
Yeah,
I was 2 years old.
Oh wow.
Okay.
That's young.
Yeah. I had to do some research to figure out kind of what happened, how it all started, basically.
Okay.
So she was just gonna ditch my dad and be like, I'm staying here. And my grandparents, who were not Scientologists, talked her into going back home, which was Connecticut, where I was born, to get a divorce, do the right thing, get that done with. And so by 1981, we wind up moving to Austin and living with my aunt for about 6 months. And the gentleman that married my aunt and my uncle was was a Scientology. It was a Scientology wedding. So my mom and him like hooked up and got married themselves. And so by the time I was about 4 or 5, we were living with him in Texas.
What was his name?
His name was Jeff Stuckey.
Okay.
Jeff. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to say my mom's name, by
That's
the way.
okay.
She's still in Scientology.
That's okay.
So yeah, Jeff Stuckey, my mom got married to him, and he wasn't the nicest guy. Let's say that. He liked to use belts and stuff to, discipline. But he was a roofer. He roofed with my uncle, they're all in Scientology. My mom wound up joining staff at Austin Org, which is the same org now, but they renovated the building. So
Okay.
this
is in Austin, Texas, right?
Yeah. When I was there, there was arcade in the basement, like the college kids would hang out on the stairs and play guitar. I remember all that. So it wasn't like it is now.
Yeah.
There was a photo hut when you walked into the building right before you went into the org. They must have been renting the space. Maybe now they own it. I don't know. But yeah, so I hung out there a lot. That was I wind up going to like Apple School, which
hanging out there. How old were you?
Well, I was like, what old was I? I was about 4 or 5. So
just hanging out.
Just hanging out when my mom was on staff.
Yeah.
Like there were like some of the staff members that would play games with me or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just run around the building. It was a lot different than now.
Very loosey-goosey.
Yeah. There was no security. There was no cameras. You could come in and out. There was no locked doors or pulled blinds. It was just open, and you could come in and just it was more like it felt more like a church, I guess. Like you could just be with the community and do, and then so then let's see. So it was about 83, 84 maybe. Jeff and my mom decided, we're gonna join the Sea Org in Los Angeles. And I also remember that day too, because I was like, I don't want to go because I have all my friends here. At the time, my grandparents actually lived in Texas, so I actually had family, and but they were not. My grandparents were never Scientologists. It was more like I got to see my grandparents. My aunt Rose was there, and then my aunt that started my mom in Scientology was there, and then so they decided we're gonna move to LA, join the Sea Org, and we got in a Bronco and we drove to Los Angeles. Jeff stayed behind, and to sell the house, close whatever account, do all that stuff.
So if you guys had a house, Jeff and your mom were both working at the org. They must have made enough money. Oh, Jeff was roofing. So that's how they had a house. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like a nice little normal life. I mean, we went to Scientology, but it was kind of like I had friends. I was going to school, even though it was a Scientology school. I mean, I saw my grandparents. It was like a normal. Yeah. Like you got to do stuff. We went on vacations. A lot of times with my grandparents, we'd go to Mexico and, do some family stuff. But then going to Los Angeles, everything changed after that. Like, my grandparents moved away, didn't see them anymore. And this whole time, my dad doesn't even know what's going on. My mom's just writing him and telling him, my life is good, everything's good, So he's not worried about me. He's thinking I'm in a good school, thinking everything's, good. But Jeff was kind of an abusive man, and it wasn't that great, but it was better than being, in the Sea Org, I guess.
So you moved to LA around 83, 84. So you were 6 or 7 years old when you got there. So did you move into the Big Blue out there, or the Fountain, like where did you actually live?
Well, we actually moved to Edgemont in an apartment building, because back then, you could be in the Sea Org and live in an apartment. You didn't have to.
Okay.
You didn't have to live in. You didn't have to live in a dorm or nothing. You could. If you had a family, you guys could all rent an apartment or whatever.
So Edgemont was 1 block away from the Blue Building.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right down the street. Not the side with 123 Edgemont where a lot of people lived. It was the other side. Closer. I guess the same side of the Blue Building would be on.
Oh, so, okay.
Yeah. So as soon as we get there, it's just me and my mom, and we also traveled with a friend and her son. They're the one that had the Bronco, and so we traveled with them. We got there. As soon as we got there, she went on the EPF, and her friend also went on the EPF, and me and her son got put in a babysitter, and I didn't see my mom for a while.
Just for our viewers, the EPF is the Estates Project Force, and that is where new Sea Org members go to get their Sea Org basic training. And so they learn the very basic stuff of being a Sea Org member, like etiquette and how birthing works and just the different schedules and basic things and the organization. And then while they do 5 hours of study a day, the rest of the time they're supposed to do manual labor such as cleaning around the buildings of the Sea Organization
or
bases.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. So yeah, she'd come get me maybe like at midnight or something, and we'd go to the apartment, and then I'd start all over again. And then Jeff shows up a little bit before Christmas. He shows up, and so he starts picking me up and dropping me off and stuff like that. And then I switched babysitters. The owner, not the owner, but the manager of the Edgemont building, he was also a babysitter. So, and I guess my mom by this time was done with EPF, and she was working at ASHO. And, so the babysitter would come, and he was like the manager of the building also. So he really didn't pay attention to the kids. So a lot of us would just run around and get to go around the building, the Blue Building, and run in the basement, look at find stuff. Back then it was still a lot of hospital stuff.
So if the babysitting was on Edgemont, you kids somehow found yourselves a block away in the basement of the Blue Building.
Yep, exploring. And back then, the RPF was living down there. And I remember the morgue sign, because it was still a lot of hospital stuff left back there.
Yeah, just for our viewers, the Big Blue Building is the old Cedars of Sinai of hospital. Okay. So it had several buildings and they were connected underground by tunnels. So there were tunnels that you could go from building to building. And that's what she's talking about. And there was a morgue, which was down there, and all sorts of things. I mean, that's what we called it, the complex. That's what we used to call it, going to the complex, and because
Right.
it was a big complex. And now, of course, they've renovated them all, but it still looks like a hospital even to this day. It's just that when we first were there for many years, there was a lot of hospital stuff still around, equipment and all sorts of things.
And dead bodies in the morgue.
When they first bought it and got in there, they'd left behind some cadavers, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, I had a question. When you were at Edgemont, were there other Scientology, parents and families living there too? Like, was that a Scientology, a place that they used? Yeah.
Yeah. There, the manager was supposedly a Scientologist, and he wanted all the Scientology kids, but not all those kids at that babysitter were Sea Org kids. Some of them were just, I guess, public kids or whatever. So so we'd run around. We'd spy on my mom in her office. I remember watching her, like, just looking at her, doing her whatever she was doing, and I remember going to the laundry room, whatever we could find. We were just all over the building. And so that's what I'm saying. It was not like locked down. You could go in and out. You could go wherever you wanted, and nobody would stop you. They didn't even ask why a bunch of little kids were running around.
Yeah, this was before they got security forces and security around all these buildings in the early 80s. We didn't have that then. Now, was your mother, you said, was working at ASHO, at the American St. Hill organization? Do you remember what her job was or what she was doing?
I don't remember what her job was, but
okay. That's fine.
I remember all the old Sea Org members there. Dicko, Lester, Dan Locke. Dan and Dicko would, like, play frisbee with me in the street and stuff.
We did an interview with Dan Locke.
Yeah, I watched.
Yeah. Okay.
Dial-wide Dan.
Yeah. Who else was it? There's a lot of ASHO people that would hang out with me. It was just like it wasn't so serious back then. I just remember people were. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to ask you. Do you know why you guys had a babysitter and you weren't in the actual Cadet Org? Because it did exist at that time.
I don't know. I mean, I really don't know.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know why, but that's coming to that. Jeff winded up taking, like, a lot of stuff. Like, okay, so he wound up leaving my mom and leaving her in a major amount of debt one day.
So he didn't like being in the Sea Org.
He never joined. He was supposed to join, and he got there. He was supposed to join. He was supposed to do maybe pay bills or something and fix whatever he had to fix to get in the Sea Org. I don't really know. You
had a project prepare, they called it.
Yeah, like a project. Yeah, and I think he just was like, no way, I'm not doing it. He left my mom in I guess when he left Austin, he didn't pay any of those bills. They owed a lot of money, and he just left. He took all of our belongings that we had left from moving. He took everything. They had a Jeep. He took that. Everything that we had, he took. And so one night I got home with my mom and everything was gone. And there was a big box in the middle of the floor with a note saying, sorry. I don't know exactly what it said, but here's the bills. And good luck with it. So yeah, he left
her with the bills.
Yep. He left everything to her, and then he disappeared. And, you can't find, back then you couldn't find people like you can now. There's no
Right.
internet, no way to find people. So yeah, he left her with a ton of bills, and sorry. So they, because that happened, we couldn't stay in the apartment anymore because we didn't have money, and then so we wind up in one of the dorms, and that's where I wind up not being able to go to the babysitter anymore. So I was just kind of on my own. I'd wake up in the dorm, and I remember the beds were all the way like 4 stacked high, and
Mm-hmm.
I was excited to sleep that high up in the bed.
Because you're a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a jungle gym.
Yeah.
Where was this? Was this in the Fountain Building, or where was this at now?
It was in PAC. It was in PAC. The blue
In,
building.
in
No,
the
but I meant, was
complex,
it in
in
the
the main
complex?
building.
Yeah, the main building. Yeah.
Okay.
Like probably on like the 6th floor or something. It was.
Yeah, well, you didn't know it at the time, but David Miscavige lived right around in that building at the same time when he was in LA.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Arm.
Let me ask Janice, wasn't that the 6th floor? Wasn't that the CMO floor in the main building in PAC? I'm trying to remember.
The fifth or 6th, because I remember in
there was 8 floors though. I remember that, right?
yeah, but in '87 when there was the earthquake, I was on the 5th floor as a missionaire. So that's why I think it was 5th or 6th floor.
Okay. Anyway.
So yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
We can cut it. We can cut it out. Do you need to answer it?
No.
Okay.
So where was it? Okay, so yeah, I don't really know what floor it was up though. It was one of the
Okay,
up.
that's fine.
Yeah. So I'd just wake up whenever I wanted to. I'd wander around the building. I'd go find my mom if I was hungry. Yeah, I didn't have any. I wasn't in the Cadet Org. I wasn't in the CEO or the ATA. I don't know why, but I was just a little kid wandering around.
Wow.
So,
Unless ASHO couldn't pay for you to be in the Cadet Org, because I think you had to pay a certain amount for each child.
Yeah, that could have been the reason.
Do you remember how much time would you spend with your mother, or what would was she just working all the time?
Yeah, she was always working. I just would have to find her if I was hungry. So I'd go to ASHO and find her for food or food money or something. Yeah. So basically I was just taking care of myself.
Right.
Yeah. And you're about how old by?
Well, it was
how old by now?
So I was like 6 or 7. Maybe just turned 6. I don't know. Yeah, so it was around the same time. Everything kind of happened around that time. So because my mom was in such big debt now, they had to route her out. And so she had to leave because she was in like a major amount of debt. And so we went.
That route out means kicked. She basically was kicked out of the Sea Org.
Yeah. They said you'd come back when you pay your debts and whatever. They don't want you in debt.
No, and I was going to explain that you couldn't join the Sea Org if you had any debts, and that's why when I talked about a project prepare, you literally had to take care of any debts because they knew you weren't going to get paid any money, and so you couldn't have monthly car payments or monthly credit card debt. You would basically it would be a distraction as far as the Sea Org was concerned, so they wouldn't allow you to be in.
Right. So we had to go back to Texas, and we wind up staying with one of her friends, the Sharps, Ed and Debbie Sharp.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wind up staying with them, and that wasn't that great because now we're living in someone's house. She's got 2 kids. She was pregnant with another kid. And I remember she had like a Scientology birth at her house, and they made me stand in the bedroom with a lot of other people from probably the Austin Org and watch her give birth. And I was a little I was a kid. I didn't,
Wow.
no, I didn't want to watch it. But yes, there was like
That's not a
it was
that's
crazy.
not a Scientology birth.
It wasn't, but there was like everybody was quiet. I remember everybody saying "be quiet," and
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that part of it is.
yeah, and there was like had to be like 20, 30 people in her bedroom watching, like friends from the order.
Oh
It
my
was
God.
weird. It was weird.
Well, that's not Scientology.
But I remember that. Whole
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah.
That would be traumatic when you were like 8 years old or 7 years old or whatever.
Yeah. Not that was yeah. So we wind up living in Texas again for a little bit, and we wind up getting this really nice apartment, and there's like swimming pools and nice little forest area around. You know, it was nice. It was a nice place to live. Then the Crusade happened. So that was 85.
In Portland.
No,
Portland
Yeah, the
Crusade.
Portland-
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
no, I'm wrong.
No, you're right. It was like 84, 85, something like that. I can't remember the exact date. It was before Hubbard died, so it had to be 85. I think it was 85.
Yeah, you're right. So 85. So I was 8 back then. And so my mom comes and tells me we're going to go to the Crusade. And so we're going to go back to LA, and we're going to meet up with some people, get on a bus, go to Portland, go here, go there. We're going to, it's going to be fun. We're going to march, you know, it's going to be a lot of fun. And she let me take sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to explain to our viewers. The Crusade is because Miscavige lost a major case up in Portland, Oregon. It was a Julie Christopherson case. And it was like a $26 million judgment against L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology. And he personally, along with Marty Rathbun, they oversaw this case for months up in Portland, and they lost. And it had never happened before that a judgment that big had come out. And Miscavige came back to the base, and he was just freaked out. And he actually came up with the idea saying, we're going to have a crusade. We're going to send all these people up there. They basically took half the staff at the Gold Base and in PAC, and they sent them up to Portland to protest the verdict because the judge had not approved, you know, he hadn't signed off on it yet. So the idea was to go up there and create as much of public pressure to get the judge to basically say, no, this is wrong. You know, the jury was out of control, and get rid of the verdict. So that's what the Crusade was. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah. So she let me bring a friend who was not a Scientologist, and I'm surprised that girl's parents said okay. But yeah, we flew back to LA. That was a lot of fun actually, because we got to like blow up balloons and you know, march. It was fun for a kid, I guess. We got to sleep.
Yeah, they had musicians up there, and they had celebrities, and they had concerts every day. Yeah,
we got to sleep.
I actually. Oh, okay. I actually have a story about 2 people in the RPF who went up there. And because they sent the RPF up there, and they were,
everybody
staying in hotels and stuff. But both of them apparently were married, but they had started their own affair while they were there. And you know, it was a big secret that they were having an affair until they had a candle burning in their room during their romance, and the candle caught on fire to the curtains. And the fire department ends up showing up, and that's how everyone found out about this affair that was going on.
Yeah.
Just an interesting little tidbit.
It's funny. Yeah, so I was really excited to march, and I wanted to hold one of the signs, and I was like, please, can I hold the sign? I really want to do that. And they're like, sure. And they gave me this sign, and I guess I didn't know how it was going to be really heavy. It was heavy. And I was small, I was a little kid. When I grabbed the sign, it tipped backwards and it hit a lady in the nose. And so she made me stay behind and do a contact assist on her nose the whole march. I didn't get to go with anybody. So, and she kept, it had to be like 2 hours. I kept telling my mom my arms are hurting. she's like, no, she's not better yet. You still got to do it. So, yeah, that part was not fun, but
Well, no, I'm sure it wasn't.
the lady
Just so
kept saying,
everyone, she kept saying what?
my nose, keep touching that nose. That was horrible.
It really should have only taken a few minutes, but anyway.
Yeah, but what a contact assist is where if you hurt yourself with something, you put it back, or you slam your fingers in a door. You keep putting your fingers back in the door, and you gently close it on it, just to kind of keep trying to release that pain. So what Amber was having to do was obviously hold the sign and keep lowering it onto this lady's nose and back. Is that right, Amber?
Yeah. Why? I was starting to be in pain because it was so heavy. So I'm like, I'm the one that needs a contact assist.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah. So that was, we had the crusade, and then after that, so the last part of the crusade, everybody went back to Los Angeles, and they all met up at Celebrity Center, and I don't know why, but they're having I guess it was just like a celebration or something, because they had music and everybody was having food and drinks, and me and my friend were running around, and we saw this table full of instruments like guitars and stuff. To this day, I wish I never ever saw that table, or ever touched that table, or ever even got close to that table, but we were messing around with this someone's guitar, and this person comes up and he's like, "That's my stuff," and his name was David Joyle, worst person in the world. So him and my mom got really close, and started talking a lot. We go back to Texas, and they decide they're gonna get together, and so we wind up moving again back to Los Angeles to be with him. And he was also a roofer, coincidentally. We wind up living in his office, because he was living in Eagle Rock in an office, and him and a bunch of Scientologists were in a Beatles cover band. And so they would practice in the office. They also ran the roofing business in the office. And then we moved into the office and slept on the floor and stuff. And so we came from a really nice apartment in Texas to a dingy office floor. And
Did you say Eagle Rock? Eagle Rock, California.
Eagle Rock.
Yeah, that's up near Glendale and Hollywood. Yeah, it's in the valley. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a little bit later on, he gets a little house. It was owned by a Scientologist. They had a big house, and then it was a bunch of little houses. It was also in Eagle Rock, and it was like a community, a Scientologist community, and everybody lived together in these little houses, and they were like cottages, I guess. And so, he started, he was not a good person. He just would tell lies about stuff. His kids they came from Florida to visit him for the summer, and they were full of lice. They had tons of lice in their hair. So bad. That's how it all started, the lice issue.
Were the kids Scientologists from Clearwater or something?
I think so. I'm not fully sure about that.
Okay.
They came out for summer. They were filthy. So then I wind up getting lice. The whole house wind up getting lice, but my mom was too busy to take care of it. So she just let me run around with lice. And all of us just ran around with lice. And she was busy running his business, his roofing business, and being his music manager. And so so yeah, and so then
So she was basically neglecting taking care of you, even though they're down.
Yeah.
Right. And so we had a few cats there, and one night my mom's cat went missing, one of her cats, and a few weeks later, all of a sudden the cat is on the back porch, not moving but alive, but barely, and she's like crying. I remember she's crying. She's like, "Oh, my cat!" And his neck was broken, and he wound up passing away in my mom's arms or whatever. And so, long story short, he basically told my mom later on in life later on when they were having problems, that he's the one that broke that cat's neck, and he hid that cat for a week and then pulled him back out because my mom wouldn't stop looking for him. So yeah, and then he also essayed me one night and told my mom he did that too. So
how old were you then?
Well, it was right after the Crusade, so I want to say I was 9. So 86.
Wow.
And this guy was a Scientologist?
Yes. Yep.
But not a staff member. He was a public, right?
Public.
And you told your mother?
I didn't know. When he did to me, I didn't know that's what he was doing. Like, it was one night, I was sleeping with my mom on her bed, and he was behind her. And then my mom got up to go to the bathroom, and then he scooted up close to me, and I felt this thing on my back, and I thought it was like his fingers, but obviously it was not. And I didn't know.
You don't have to go into the details, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what he was doing, and I was a kid. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so, but he told my mom, because she wanted to leave him, and he told my mom that he broke the neck and he did that to me, and so he told her that, and then instead of filing a police report or whatever, because he was a Scientologist, she didn't do anything like that. So, what are you gonna do?
But she should have written a knowledge report to the ethics officer, at least.
She did. I'm
okay.
not sure, but other than if she did that, that's all she did.
Yeah.
So we, so I'm still at this time. I have very bad lice. My glands are swollen. My glands are swollen. I got like lumps on my throat, really bad.
Do you need to get that?
That's my clock. I'm sorry.
That's her clock. It's gonna go ding, ding, ding.
Yeah, it's stopped.
Yeah.
It's saying it's 5:00 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was a mess. I had ringworm really bad also, and so she was trying to leave him. He was kind of stalking her. So then my aunt from Austin came down for, goodness, hold on.
The Scientology aunt?
Yes. And she came, hold on. She came down, I don't know, probably to do something. I think it was something at Celebrity Center, maybe a course. I don't really know what it was that she came down for, but I do remember she came down and she saw what a mess I was, and basically told my mom I'm taking her back with me because this is ridiculous. So again, I go back to Texas, and I went up living with her for a year until I was 10.
Did they handle the lice and all the different problems that you were having out there?
My aunt did, yes. She shaved my head. It was horrible. She put me on medicine for the swollen glands and the ringworm. But my aunt wasn't that nice also. I mean, yeah, she did that. But she would tell me, like, if that ringworm would have gotten a little bit worse, it would have choked you and you would have died. Stuff like that.
Wow. Now,
Yeah.
and so when your aunt took you back to Texas, what did your mother do?
Stayed in LA. I don't really know. She wound up working at Mace Kingsley for a minute.
Mace Kingsley, that was the Scientology school that was known for some abuse to the children, right?
Yeah, yep. She worked there for a little bit before they had a ranch or whatever, because they also had like a ranch. It was actually being like rented at it was at a church that they rented the space from them, and so she worked there for a little bit, but I don't really know. I think what her plan was to work on that debt that she had from Jeff and get back in the Sea Org, because that was her whole plan. And so I stayed with my aunt, and then so basically
all during this time, were you going to school or no?
Actually, I was going to a public school, and and I still would go to the Austin Org. She would go to the events and stuff like that. But
were you going to school in Los Angeles before your aunt took you back to Texas? No.
Were you behind, like when you went to the public school? Like, did they have a hard time placing you in a grade?
They put me in special ed because my schooling is not good. That's
right.
I've had I've suffered that.
I understand.
So I stayed with her for a year, and then they tried to get hold of my mom, like, come on, you need to take her back, because basically my aunt was not, like I said, not a good person also, and she basically told me I was causing her and her family to go bankrupt, and she can't afford to take care of me anymore. And asked me if I wanted to stay with my dad or my grandparents or my mom. And of course I said my mom, because I didn't know my dad very well.
Right.
I should have said either my dad or my grandparents, honestly, but I chose my mom. So then they had a hard time getting a hold of her. So then they sent me to my grandparents for the summer. And then my grandparents were having a hard time getting a hold of her. And finally she sent a plane ticket, and I wound up moving back with her. And that's when
How old were you when you moved back to California then?
I was 10. Just turned 10. Yeah, so 1987. Okay.
So you were 10 years old when you went back to LA with your mother, correct?
Yes. And that's when she was working at Mace Kingsley. And that's how I met Danny Mustard. And that's how I met the Oblinsky brothers, Serge, Sasha, and Yuri.
Oh, okay.
So, and then, let's skip to 12.
Okay.
By the time I was 12, we were living at the Shangri Lodge.
Across the road from Celebrity Center.
Yes. And so a recruiter came over and recruited me and a few other kids that lived at the Shangri Lodge. And so I got on the EPF. I was 12. Struggled through those courses. I couldn't even get past the BSM. It was
well. Let me ask you: Could you read and write at that point? You were 12 years old, right?
I could read and write, but I mean, I was probably like at a third grade reading level.
Right.
Writing was horrible. I barely went to school.
Right.
On and off to different public schools once in a while, but not a lot. But yeah, so that was tough. So I wound up staying on the EPF because I couldn't pass through the BSM or I forget what's next after the BSM, but I couldn't
Well,
even.
the BSM is the basic study manual, and that's basically learning how to study. Then
Yeah.
probably after that was just Welcome to the Sea Org tapes or something like that, right? The
Probably, yeah.
lectures.
I never even made it to that at that time. I wind up on there for like 6 months. It was crazy. Met a lot of cool people on the APF. I mean, we had a good time. We would make it fun.
And you were 12, 13 years old?
I was just 12. I wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you living then at the complex again, at the Big Blue?
Yep. I think on the 3rd floor, the main building.
Okay.
In a dormitory with other people or just with your mom?
Yep. No, my mom wasn't there. My mom was doing whatever she was working, wherever she was working.
So was she still living at Shangri-La Lodge while you moved into the Sea Org quarters?
Yeah.
And you moved into the Sea Org, and she was okay with that?
Yep.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Did she sign approval for you to join the Sea Org since you were only 12 years old?
Sure she did. I mean, I don't remember, but I'm sure she did.
Do you remember signing a billion-year contract, or did they not do that with you?
Oh, yeah, no. They came to the Shangri-La and made it sound like it's going to be the best thing. And they made you read that 30 more years on this planet, kind of from L. Ron Hubbard. I forget what it's called, but yeah, they make you read that to scare you that the planet's going to die if we don't get clearing it and getting out there. And so they did a whole thing. And
I understand.
Yeah. So wind up on the EPF for a very, very long time, too long. And I was getting depressed because I wasn't passing. I was staying at the same place while everybody was leaving. And so they wind up calling my mom. At the time, the bosun was Jim Garrison. He's redheaded guy.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was telling me, because I was crying and telling him I can't do it. And I said, I'm trying. And he said, we don't try, we do. And he did the whole, there's no try, there's only do kind of thing. And so then they wind up calling my mom, and she's trying to talk me into, staying in and just getting through it. And I begged her, I want out, please let me out. So she wound up taking me out, and by that time she was sharing an apartment by one of the TV studios. I think it was CW, like that, like right across the street from there. And a bunch of Scientologists sharing apartments. And then so I go there, I stay there for like a little bit, maybe a week, and then she's like, I'm going to join the Sea Org. So we go right back to, so we go she gets on the EPF, and so I know everybody, they're all that just left. And
right.
Yeah, so she passes really fast, gets off.
So you're back on the EPF, or you went into the Cadet Org?
No, I didn't go in the Cadet Org yet. I had to stay with her while she was doing the EPF. So I just followed her around while she did her cleaning and did her EPF.
Okay.
And no, I wasn't on the EPF, but she was. And they wouldn't pay for, like you said, they wouldn't pay for me to go in the Cadet Org until she was done with doing the EPF. So I had nothing to do, so I just followed her around or whatever. And then, so she gets done. She goes to the HGB, and then I get put in the Cadet Org. And by the time I get in the Cadet Org, it's like everybody's so cruel and bullies, lots of bullies. Everybody just, they all grew up together, and I'm like the new person that showed up.
Right.
And, yeah, they're just rude people, horrible people. Ned Rakoe was the cadet coordinator at the time. I don't know if you guys know her. And then again, the HGB wasn't paying for me to go to school, but I was able to stay in the cadet org.
The HGB is the Hollywood Guarantee Building, and that's where the management org was at that time, right, Janice? International Management.
Yes, that's right.
So that's where your mother was working.
Middle management was there at the time, not international.
Okay.
Yeah. So for some reason her department or whatever was not paying for me to go to school, but I could be in the cadet org, but I couldn't go to school. So when everybody would go to school, I would stay with the cadet coordinator, which was not fun for me at all. So I decided I'm going to do my own thing. And I left the cadet org and I went to Celebrity Center. I went back to see all my old friends at the Shangri-La Lodge.
So you walked from the blue building all the way up to the manor?
Yep.
And the cadet
on Franklin.
The cadet org was on Fountain at the time?
It was at PAC. It was, where the canteen is, right now where the canteen is, down the stairs and
yes.
That door. There was like a copier room behind the canteen, and then behind the copier room was where the cadets were.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm actually curious what they did with that room, but yeah.
Yeah. So at 12 years old, you would walk from the complex up through along Sunset and Hollywood Boulevard all the way to Bronson and then up to Franklin.
Yes.
That's a long walk.
Yeah. Sometimes I would take the Dash, which was a 25-cent little bus that would take you part of the way. It would take you all the way, but it would take you.
So you were living at the complex, but you were going to Celebrity Center to hang out with your friends again at the Shangri-La Lodge.
Yep. And then
you weren't working. You were 12 years old. You weren't going to school.
I wasn't going to school, but then back then, Celebrity Center was under construction. They just started doing construction. So because back then they had like gold flowered wallpaper and shag carpeting back in the day, and then they were just starting to renovate it. And one of the guys I was on the EPF with, his name was Rocky. He was working in the kitchen, which was the old ATA building, because they'd moved everybody outside while they were renovating the kitchen and everything. So the old ATA building like pretty much fell down, like it had rain damage and stuff. It was a bad shape.
The ATA building, are you talking about the annex of the Celebrity Center?
Yeah. So the ATA building is where the pavilion is now. So
I know where it is.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's where all the little kids used to be.
Yeah, that was the annex. Yeah.
So that building pretty much like fell down, and the only thing that was standing was the kitchen. So Celebrity Center used that kitchen, while their kitchen was being renovated, if that makes any sense. And they had a tent. Okay. They had a tent outside where all the staff would eat. And back then it wasn't. There was actual staff and Sea Org members that worked at Celebrity Center. So it wasn't like all Sea Org back then. And so the guy that I was on the EPF with, he said, why don't you just help out here in the kitchen? And so I started helping while they were being renovated. And I got to meet Cliff, who was the cook, Cliff Burke. And so they would feed me. I would help them out in the kitchen. And also I would babysit for some of the public, while they were going to course. I'd babysit their kids and that were staying in like hotel room. So,
and then at the end of the night, would you go back to the complex to stay with your mother?
Yep.
Would you walk? Did you walk in the dark?
Dash. You took the bus.
Halfway.
Take the Dash the rest of the way.
Did you have any money? Like, were you getting paid anything?
Oh yeah, for babysitting. At first Liberty Center was like, we want to take that money from you, and I was like, no, that's my money. I babysit. I get to keep that money. So they couldn't argue with me, so I kept the money. And I also got to do, like, they would do auditing for me. Like I was like, you know how people needed people to audit, I'd be they'd pick me to do like the objectives and stuff like that.
I see.
So when all the renovations were all over, a group of executives came one day. I just turned 14 because I remember Cliff made me this huge sheet cake for my birthday. And so they said, everybody come to muster. We need to talk to you. They said anybody that is not Sea Org has to leave. And because this is now going to be a Sea Org only,
Organization.
Yeah. So that meant I had to go back to the Cadet Org. So that's where I went. And then Nedra told me, don't ever blow again or we'll not let you back in. And I was like, well, I wasn't doing anything. You wouldn't let me go to school. So then I guess they worked it out, and my mom's part of the HGB started paying for me to go to school. But really, it wasn't school because it was just writing. Like for writing, we'd write letters to public to come back, come do.
Central Files letters. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. What school was this? Was this like there was an Apple school and different things? What school was this?
No, it was the Cadet Org. It was.
It was they were doing projects. Janice, if you remember, Jorge Avila told us they would do projects like Central Files projects and things like that.
Yeah, they rented a school up close to. I can't remember the name, but it was not a great neighborhood. But they rented it, and we'd go there, like Altadena,
and write letters.
We'd write letters. We do a few projects, like maybe a math project, but it wasn't very much studying. They would tell you.
Well, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, go ahead.
All right. They would just tell you to pick like a book or read that, or there was no structure for schooling or nothing like that. If the people at the Blue Building Bridge or whoever wanted us, we'd go file for them, or we'd do it like Mark said, a project. Yeah. We'd get pulled out of school, supposedly school, and get on a project. And then they started.
Well, I was going to say, if we could, this would be a good point to ask you a couple questions about this time period before we end. But this would be, let's not go further in your story. We'll do that on the next video, right? But I wanted to ask you a couple questions. Like, do you remember who the commanding officer of the Cadet Org was? Because it's normally a kid, right? Do you remember who that was?
Yep. First, it was Orion Guy, and then he left. Then it was Russell. I heard that Russell actually is at Flag working in the Sea Org still. I can't think of his Russell Miller. And then
who were your friends? Do you remember any of your friends that were with you at the Shangri Lodge or CC or anything like that people might know?
The people at the Shangri Lodge that were my friends was Danny Muster. There's a sisters, Kendra, Yetta, Aisha. Aisha wasn't their sister, but Aisha lived there. Who else?
Did you ever meet Mark Headley or his sister?
I might have. We might have in our past. I know that I met Sterling in my past.
He was older. Mark was older, but he lived at the Shangri Lodge up until he joined Able, and then he was only a teenager then, but anyway.
Yeah, I'm sure I met him. I'm sure we were running around in the same area. Also, Sterling, I know he was running around Pack when I was running around.
Did you, and then during this time period, like, did you have much interaction with your mother, or was it just sort of passing in the night? You know, you were going to do your thing. And...
More at night, and on Sundays to do laundry and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. And as far as your education goes, like, you didn't go and do like reading, writing, and arithmetic or history or anything like that, right? It was just basic, you know.
I did Apple School for a little bit in Texas, and I mean I guess that's where I learned how to read, was there.
So it's difficult, you know, when parents, particularly like your mother, you know, basically left you to fend for yourself, you know.
Yeah.
It was very, very hard. Life was not easy.
No.
Definitely.
And
No,
you didn't have any
especially,
sisters or brothers, right? It was just you and your mother, right?
Yeah, my dad has 2 sons, but I didn't get to know them. I didn't get raised with them.
I kind of look at you and me. It's like, and you've got a parent who is putting Scientology and the Sea Org ahead of their own children. You know, that's what I went through, and I see that's what you went through. You weren't a priority.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah.
No,
And it's a very twisted purpose. You know, why have the kids if you're going to treat them like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Janice, you've mentioned you've had your own kids, Janice, and you couldn't imagine doing that to your kids, I'm sure, right? You know, as they were growing up.
No, when mine were 11, I was like, what were my parents thinking to leave me in the Sea Org all by myself? And Amber, that's the same as you. What was your mother thinking? Because you're a good mother.
Yeah, I tried. I think she was thinking she's going to clear this planet and make things good, and that I was going to be what she told my dad in letters. She told him I was exceeding in life, and I was doing really good, and I was happy, and that could be far from the truth. I mean, I was shipped off a lot to different people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Scientologists, they drink the Kool-Aid, basically. Oh, it's more important to, quote unquote, clear the planet than it is to tend to your own children and tend to your own family. I mean, I didn't have to experience that because I didn't get involved with the Sea Organization until I was, 17 years old, and I'd already finished my schooling, and I went with my dad's blessing to join the Sea Org, but I couldn't imagine, if I was a kid trying to do that. I mean, that's why it's a little because we've been doing this now for a year and a half. I mean, when I joined the Sea Org, I already was an adult. So I didn't have kids, you know what I mean? I didn't have to deal with any of this situation, but there were a lot of Sea Org members, Janice, like at the international base, wherever, that had children, and they had to deal with this. And to me, it was completely out of my universe. I didn't even think about it. And it's when I hear these stories, which is really abuse, even if you weren't, beaten or this or that, which, I'm not saying that you weren't, but, just the lack of education is abuse. Do you know what I mean? The lack of nurturing and raising a child. And these have been eye-opening stories to me ever since we started doing this, because we've found a lot of these stories and I just had never heard of them before.
Yeah. It would have been nice to live in a house and go to high school and go to prom. That would have been really cool.
Exactly.
Yeah, I didn't know what prom was.
Yeah.
And I do talk to my mom, but not very much, because we just get in arguments and about what she believes and what I believe. So I'm just kind of like, you live your life, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Well, I am glad that you have moved on and you've got a good life now, and you've got your own kids.
Yes, me too. My kids are awesome.
Yeah, and we'll continue. We're going to continue your story, because I know our viewers are going to want to hear the rest of it, and I'd like to hear the rest of it too, because it's the first time we've actually heard it.
My story's a little bit different than some people's, I guess.
They're still important. It doesn't matter if they're different. It's still very important. So we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, okay. Awesome. So I'm
Not a
glad.
problem. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that like button, notification button. Whenever we have another guest like Amber, of course, you'll get notified. So we really appreciate that. If you have any questions or comments or any questions for Amber that we can ask her on the next show, go down in the comments section. We read them all and we will respond. If you'd like to support our channel, there's a link in the description. You can buy us a coffee. And that's what I've got for today. Janice, have you got anything else, or Amber, anything else you'd like to say?
I do. You can do what Amber did and buy my book.
Oh, that's right.
And I will autograph it.
That's right. She's not got one book. She's got two books. And this is about her life, Janice's life in the Sea Organization at kind of the same age that we're at with Amber right now in our story. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Anyway, yeah, there's a link. You can see it where you can order Janice's book if you'd like to read it. And it's a great read. And anyway, so we wanted to say that to everybody. All right. Anything else anybody'd like to say before we end off? Where am I at?
Rock slam that like button.
Okay. All right. Until next time, everybody. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.